this time.
Starting with these Renette Tillies. These were some that I was most excited about when I first saw some of the spoilers for this set. So 3-cost Bolt. It says, when she is active, you may reroll 1 die extra time. Wow, that was confusing. 1 die 1 extra time during your roll and reroll step. 022, 132, 133 for her stats. This one is okay. It's just okay. It's a 3-cost Bolt, and it's got the ability that a lot of cards do have. This one's a little more limited in that it just allows 1 reroll for 1 die. So this one's okay. Just kind of okay. This one, however, is a little different. 3-cost Bolts, and it says, when she is active, at the end of your roll and reroll step, you may spin any action die in your reserve pool on a non-energy face to any other face. So, if you have her out there and she's got the burst face up, you can immediately just gain 2 energy. Or if you've got the burst face with no little stars, the no criticals on the bottom, you can spin it to its double burst side and guarantee the double burst. So thinking back through all of the action cards that are out there, all of the basic actions and the regular actions, there are several that take advantage of those 1 burst or 2 bursts. This guarantees a 1 or a 2 burst if you've rolled the action already. So I think this is really cool, and you can actually put some stuff around this that works out well. Like, for example, Captain Cold's Cold Gun. That card wiping, text wiping ability only takes effect on that burst side. So running this with that is a guaranteed text wipe. So this is a really, really good card. One of the reasons why I wanted to buy this set, I thought. And here's the other Renette Tilly. This one says, when fielded, you may move a die from your reserve pool to your used pile, to roll a different die from your used pile and place it in your reserve pool. Okay, so I can, in other words, put this die out on the field, swap a die in my reserve pool, pull out a die from my used pile, and roll that die and then use it, which is ridiculous because I can buy, let's say I buy a 5-cost, then I field Renette Tilly for 0. And then I roll out this 5-cost, and then I play said 5-cost, paying whatever cost to field at a very cheap rate overall. This has some really, really cool possibilities, some cool combos, and this is another card of several that have come out in the past couple of sets that marks a sort of a change in the thinking that I think WizKids is going through of ways to get things out on the field quickly. Other cards like this include Rip Hunter's Chalkboard, a card we're going to look at in this set in a moment that pulls things from your prep area. Cards like, what was that Civil War card that did that same thing? It'll come to me, and I'll remember it. But there's this line of play that is now opening up. Oh, it's the Katana. Katana comes out of your used or out of your prep or off the card. There's a lot, and that's not from that Civil War set. Sorry, it's from the Green Arrow Flash. So there's this design feature that they're sort of starting to implement that allows you to get cards or get dice out in completely different ways rather than waiting for them to cycle through the bag and in really fast ways. So I'm excited to see this specific card used and to see what it can do. This sort of opens up doors in my mind of things that can happen, especially on a competitive level, because competitive Dice Masters is really all about tempo and speed and how quickly you can get to your setup. You can get your side set up. Anyway, moving on. I like all 3 of those cards. I really like the first or the second and the third, or is it the first and the third? Yeah, second and the third. That's the one. So 79th Dimension and Impeccable Timing. All right, here's the Shredder card that we mentioned briefly earlier. This one says, when fielded, it's a 6-cost mask, by the way. When fielded, players must pay 1 life to activate a global. This actually has been on cards before, but it's just kind of sat out there and been a static effect, a wall active effect. This being a when fielded effect is really not very good. It's got an 8-8 side, though. Look at the stat line. 144, 166, and 288. So simply for that stat line alone, this card's probably, or these variants of cards, one of these is worth running. It's got to be, because a 6-cost for that stat line is pretty strong. That's one of the better stat lines. That competes with the Green Arrow and Flash set for stat line stuff. That had, if you don't know, the Green Arrow and Flash set had probably some of the highest stat lines for an entire set out of the past very many sets. And this is more like what they were doing on that. in that set. So I kind of like that. Same cost here. This one says when he KOs an opposing non-villain character die, that die's controller loses 1 life. I probably like this one a little more than the original one. Well, I'd have to look through and see the globals that are still included within modern age now to see if I like that one more, because there are some really powerful globals that have been cut. But there are some that are sort of coming right back around when they're reprinting some of those basic action cards. Like Magic Missile is now in this set. We'll talk about it when we get there. So I don't know. These are kind of a toss-up. This is not a bad ability, though. I think they're about tied, because that ability will trigger often. There's not a lot of times, unless you're playing against a villain team, that you're just going to run into a villain and be like, oh, there you go, that didn't trigger it. Most of the time it's going to trigger. So it's really just paying 6. Here we have a ridiculous 8 cost variant. It says when fielded, move all Foot Ninja dice and up to 2 sidekick dice from your used pile to your field zone at level 1. Like what? So it's 8, which is expensive in this game. And its ability is cool if you have that stuff in your used pile. It moves. What would make this worth it? Let's see. If you moved 2 Foot Ninja dice at level 1, that's 1/1s, right? They're 1/1s, and then 2 sidekicks. You get 4 1/1s out on the board. And then if you're running an ally buffer, like Karai over there, this could be good. How do you get to 8 though? Like, that's a tough thing to do in this game. It's not like you just get to 8 on turn 2. You get to 7. You can get to 7 on turn 2. I don't know. I'd have to really sit down and think about this. It's got a strong ability, but getting to 8 and then having that ability trigger, it's really kind of a toss-up. Card, we have a 5-cost Bolt character known as Slash. He's got a villain affiliation, obviously, because he's a villain in the show. And it says when Slash is blocked, deal damage equal to his attack to target opposing character die that is not blocking him. So this really hinges around blocking and not blocking, and kind of unuseful in a lot of ways. He's got an 034, a 154, and a 265 stat line, though. If this were a 4-cost card, that stat line would be worth it just to run that, honestly, because that's a strong stat line for a 4-drop. For a 5-drop, not so much. And that ability can be cool, but just as it kind of pings out some other non-blocking side or non-blocking character. So I'd play around with this probably just to see its effect and how strong it can be when dealing damage to things that my opponent doesn't necessarily want me to KO. So kind of cool is my comment. Professional opinion. When Slash is KO'd, it's a 5-cost again. When Slash is KO'd, deal damage equal to his level to target opponent. So he gets KO'd on really none of his sides are super good at getting KO'd. They're super bad at getting KO'd, I should say. So he's got a 4, a 4, and a 5 on defense. So this will happen pretty regularly, him getting KO'd. And he's going to want to get blocked most of the time, unless he's on his 3-4. Then you could probably send that through. But then the opponent's taking 3. So dealing 1 damage, 2 damage, or 3 damage is pretty good. I don't know which of these I like. Probably like the other one more just because it manipulates the board state a little more, and that's important in this game. But overall, both pretty good abilities. And finally, here we have the last version of this card, another 5-cost Bolt version, obviously Bolt. When he is KO'd, deal damage to target opponent equal to the total energy in their reserve pool. Now, this is an intriguing one, and it's one that I'm curious about whether or not this meta will have a lot of leftover unspent energy. We still have the second D&D set, which has the Elf Thief in it, which means we're going to see a lot of Elf Thief out there stealing energy. We're probably going to see a lot of Oracle out there trying to keep them from using globals and that sort of thing. And without PXG, there's still going to be energy in your reserve pool sitting around, most likely. I guess it does force you to spend that differently than you would. You wouldn't just keep masks laying around like you would with PXG. So this may or may not be good. I would probably run either of the other 2 of these cards over this one just because this is sort of an unknown factor. unless you're running this on a specific team along with Elf Thief and Oracle that ups the value of, really any of those Oracles now are pretty good. But I'd take the other two probably more. That's a really good card overall, though. Here we have Tiger Claw, 7-cost mask villain. When fielded, deal 3 damage to each opposing character die, which is really, really good. 1/5/2, a 2/6/3, and a 2/7/3. For 7, when fielded, deal 3. Basically, it's a board wipe when you field it, but for 7, I don't know. I'm looking for something more on the defensive side of things. Of course, when you hit the board with him, he's not going to get KO'd that turn, so you're probably swinging through with him that first turn. I don't like this probably as much, especially because it's a 7 cost, and that's hard to do in this game. You're really having to devote 7 energy to something right off the bat is, because you can do it on turn 2 like you can with Beholder and the Beholder teams. But is this good enough to go for turn 2, or that sort of thing? Probably not. Here's a 6-cost variant with the same stat line, obviously. When fielded, KO target level 1 or level 2 character die, so it's a spot removal now instead of mass removal. For 6, I don't want spot removal. I'd rather have that for maybe like a deal 2 instead of deal 3 for that. That would be better. So far, not loving it. Not loving these. Here's the last one. When Tiger Claw attacks, deal 2 damage to target opponent. This one I do like better than those other 2. Maybe. Yeah, probably, because it's a 6 cost. It's got this good stat line. It's going to get KO'd. It's going to recycle. It's not so much about dealing 7, dealing 6, or dealing 5. It's really just about dealing 2, getting KO'd, rolling it out again next turn, dealing 2. This could do some work, and if you put an Overcrush on it, it could do some more work. So I probably like this one the best, just because its ability works well with its stat line, whereas the others kind of don't jive. Here we have a blank card. No ability on this one. This is Triton, which is the coolest name ever. 4-cost fist character, villain affiliation, and he's got a decent stat, a really pretty decent stat line overall. 4 cost though. 1/1 or 1/3/3, 1/4/4, 2/5/5. This is just straight up vanilla card. I don't know if I like it just as it is though. 4 is a bit too much for that stat line. 5-cost variant has an ability on this one. It says when Triton attacks, it gets +3 attack. So basically, look at all those stat lines. When it attacks, it gets +3. So it's a 6/3, a 7/4, or an 8/5. This one I would see running, but unfortunately, it's a 5. It's a 5 cost or a 5 to purchase. So not loving it either. I like this one better than the blank card though. And finally, we have a 5 cost. This one literally just says Overcrush. Overcrush will get used, and the fact that it has Overcrush is really, really good. It immediately puts pressure on your opponent because they have to start thinking about and doing the math based on how they want to take damage if they can't, double block to get rid of the 5. This plus a buffing ability, like a buffing global, is pretty good. If it were a 4-drop, this would be amazing. If it were a 6-drop, it would be terrible. So since it's a 5-drop, it's sort of right in the middle. So it's okay. I'd probably run that one over any of the other ones. And now we get to the cards that I'm super interested in, are all of these basic action cards that are included in the set. Some of these are reprints of the older stuff. Some of these are brand new, like this one, for example, is a reprint. This one says, it's called Haymaker. Used to be called, Anger Issues. There you go. It's a 4 cost, and it says target character die deals, gets +3 and Overcrush this turn. And it's got the global that pay a fist, target character die gets +1 until the end of the turn. One of my favorite basic actions, and I'm glad that I can run this still instead of seeing it and saying goodbye to it because the old set was gone. That was from the original Justice League set, so to see it brought back is nice, and to see it stay in the rotation is nice. So Ingenious Tactics, this is a new one. I think it's a new one, right? Yeah, 5 cost, and it says prevent all combat damage to each of your attacking character dice until the end of the turn. This is really cool. Unfortunately, it's 5 cost. If this were a 4 or even a 3 cost, this would probably not be broken. As a 5 cost, it's probably not strong enough. I don't like that they changed the art for this and went with the animated I guess all of these are animated, right? They went with the computer animated variant of the TMNT guys, but it is what it is. Don't like that one as much. Here's the card. Here's why you should buy this set. This is momentum. It's a 1 cost action. And it says roll any number of your dice from your prep area and place them in your reserve pool. And then on the double burst, which you can get by pulling that third Renette Tilly down here. On the double burst, also before selecting which dice to roll, draw a die and place it in your prep area. So basically, just crazy shenanigans, purchasing, going to KO or going to prep, somehow prepping something with Rip Hunter Chalkboard, rip it over, momentum it, just craziness. This card is so cool, and I would pay for this card just straight up. This is worth the money for this set. It's awesome. Get the set. Hooray. Next. 3 cost mutation. This is what the reprint of Polymorph, right? Swap target character die. Focus thing. It won't focus. Swap target character die in the field zone with target non-sidekick character die in the player's use pile. Spin that character die to level 1. This does not trigger when fielded effects. The great thing about Polymorph back in the day is that you could totally use it on your opponent's characters, which made this both a cool offensive and defensive card. There were some really, really great games played when Dice Masters first came out at the Nationals and the Worlds levels by some guys down in Austin. This card basically saw play on just about everybody's team actually when this game was in its infancy, and it was used both as an offensive and defensive tool. And it's this card is one of the reasons why I really fell in love with this game, because it was so cool that you could take something that was a 3 cost. We haven't even gotten to the global yet. We could take something that was a 3 cost, purchase it, and then use it either for offense or defense, depending on the situation. So it was very much like a chess game or sort of strategy resource management game with this specific card, like a mini game almost. Because how do you use it? Should I use it for offense? Should I use it for defense? Do I want to put on pressure? Do I want to relieve pressure? Some really cool things. And then you get to the point where you read the global and it says pay mask. Spin one of your character die down a level to spin another character die up a level. And again, this can be used both offensively and defensively. So if your opponent has a character with a burst face on their lower levels, you can spin it off the burst face. This is one of my favorite cards in the entire game, and I'm glad to see it still around. So I'm a big fan of that. Mysterious Shredder Transport. That's a 3 cost, and each player must sacrifice 1 character die. Sacrificing, again, is where you take a character from the field zone, move it to the used pile. So this basically just forces you to kill one of your characters, forces your opponent to kill one of your characters. I don't love it. I could see some people doing some stuff with it, but I don't necessarily love it. I can't also immediately think of some cool things to build around it. If you have ideas for this card, some things that kind of synergize with this, let me know. We have a 2 cost Nefarious Broadcast basic action. There it is. It says cancel any active effects of previously used global abilities. Global abilities cannot be used until the end of the turn. So this cancels anything that was, like for example, let's pretend that there was a global ability that pay X, remove that thing's card text, something like that. This would cancel that. I'm interested to see if they're going to print up cards that have a ton of really powerful globals that make people run this card. As of right now, there are a few things that I would run this card to prevent, like, that card's actually nixed now. I was going to say the Doom Caliber Knight, where my cards can't be, affected by global abilities. Boom. Just kidding. Yes, they can be. And in addition to that, I'm going to do all this other junk. But that card's gone now. So there are a few things. I'd have to dig through and see which globals are really, really powerful. Jury's out on this card for me. Here we have Speedy Delivery and the return of, what is this one? Target character die must attack at its next opportunity. Spin this character die up 1 level. Pay a bolt for the global. Target character die gets +1 until the end of the turn. What is this one from? From the first or the second set? AVX or UXM? This one's a reprint, though. Never really saw play as the original, I think. Yeah, I didn't really see. It would saw play for some global stuff really early on, I think. But other than that, it's just okay. This global you can put on a team that has a lot of bolts and it has that buffing effect. But other than that, it's probably not going to see a ton of play unless they release stuff specifically to build around it. Splinters Teachings is a 3-cost basic action, and it says roll target character die from your used pile. If it rolls a character faced, field it at no cost. Otherwise, place it in your bag. Pay a shield, swap the attack of target character die you control and a target opposing character die. So it has a really cool flip-flop global on it. I forget if this one's a reprint or not. I don't think so. That doesn't sound recognizable. Maybe it is. Either way, I like the ability to roll something and then pop it into the field. It feels like a D&D one. Was this a D&D one? Maybe it was. I'm not sure. Feels like a D&D one. Anyway, Reclaim is a 2-cost, so this immediately makes people go, whoa, a 2-cost. Move a die from your used to your prep. Oh my goodness. You put this with momentum, and shenaniganry occurs. Run this card with momentum, see what happens. This is really cool. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. Unstable Canister. Welcome back, a Magic Missile, because this is Magic Missile. Does not have the text that talks about an adventurer on it, though. It does have the turtle card effect. So this is deal 2 damage to target character, die, or player. And then on the double burst face, it says deal extra damage to target character die equal to the level of your highest level turtle power card in the field zone. But really what you're running this for is pay bolts, deal 1 damage to target character die. If you're running this in constructed, if you're playing a draft, you're bringing this card and hoping to buy up all 3 of these and throw them at your opponent until they die. This card has got a love-hate relationship with me and with the community. I love this card on when it was Magic Missile. I loved this card when playing the Hulk Green Goliath team, just because it was the engine that allowed you to ping Hulk and clear boards constantly. When playing against this in draft, I actually really hate this card because when someone sits down with this with this on the other side of you in draft, it basically just means, okay, so who's going to purchase more of these and throw them at the other person? And usually the person who's able to do that is the winner of that round. So don't be that guy. I mean, you can be that guy if you really enjoy rolling basic actions, but don't be that guy. All right, so we were going to come back to this card, Rafael. Now that we've looked at all the action dice and global abilities in this set, are there any of these action dice or global abilities that really worry me that I'd want to be able to negate with this card? And the answer is probably not. So do I value this card a ton? Probably not is the answer, especially because it only applies to turtle character dice. And there are cards out there, like, for example, the Batgirl card from the most recent Batgirl printed. She's got the ability that says none of your, I think it's mask characters that you control can be targeted by action dice or globals. That is more utilitarian as it applies to a universal symbol versus this affiliation that's really only shared by a few cards. All right, so that is the set. I found it to be very much worth the $35 that it costs for it. You get a lot of stuff in it. And again, I like the box that it comes in. I don't necessarily need the box that it comes in, but I like it nonetheless. I like the packaging overall, feels nice. I do like the individual dice themselves. I think they have some good art on these dice specifically in this set. Love that paw, even though the character's not very good. Love the art and stuff. Anytime you get some translucent dice, you can have some fun times. It's hard to pick up, what you roll. It's hard to see those things, but otherwise, really, really like the set. I think there's a lot of interesting cards in this, and I think this set becomes even more and more worth it now that they've announced a modern age versus a golden age. A lot of these cards are more utilitarian. They have more utility now that they have some room to shine, some room to breathe, and that's the thing about. I've seen some comments And I love seeing the comments that people are leaving on these videos and in the discussion groups about whether or not the rotation is a good thing. I personally do think it is a good thing, and I'm really glad that it's happening, because in a game that your deck or your team is made up of 8 cards, you're gonna pick the best 8 cards. I mean, that's the point, right? You get a team together, you put the best 8 cards you can that all work together, and then you go and kill your opponent. Well, if you're open to everything, and you would think, at first glance, that if there's a ton of cards, then you have all of these options, and then who knows what the best card is. But let's be honest, communities are really good at going, well, these cards are really tier 1, and these cards are tier 2, and so on and so forth. So you're going to find those 8 best cards, and it forces the game makers to print better and better and better and better and better cards, just to get you to play something differently, rather than those staple 8. And so without a rotation, it makes it really, really tough on the developers to keep upping the ante and have I don't want to say balance, because balance isn't the worst thing in the world. It's okay to have an unbalanced game to a certain extent, but it's hard to have a fun game or a fresh game. And so a rotation alleviates that problem to some extent, in that when you take away some of those, at least in the competitive scene, when you take away some of those really, really powerful cards, and you force people to use the new stuff, it opens up a level of design that you didn't have previously open to you, because now you can design cards that are a little bit less powerful than the ones that you had from old sets, but still playable. Whereas before, you design those cards and no one's going to touch them because they're just slightly below, the power of a Sarina, or, this Bard is so good that, I'm just going to build 7 cards that are good with Bard. So I think this set benefits a lot from the rotation, because some of these things that you would just be chuck it, it's not worth it because I can't fit that into the best 8 cards in the game, are now all of a sudden viable, like turtle power. That, who knows, that could totally be viable now. Whereas before, if you ran a turtle team, you're going to get crushed at a tournament. So I think this set is worth the pickup. I think it's good that I think part of the reasons it's worth the pickup is because of the rotation. I think it's good that they instituted the rotation, and I'm super excited going forward with how this game progresses. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching these super duper extra long videos, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.